Thank you for being here. My name is Shannon McClellan. This is my talk, The Allure of the Hunt, Drawing New Talent into DFIR. This is my second time speaking at SANS, so I thought I wouldn't be so nervous. Unfortunately, I was given the hardest time to speak for the second time in a row, which is right before lunch. Very high pressure situation for a man like me. There's a lot of people here that if I go too long, they're gonna be very hangry, pushing me off the stage. That's not a good thing, but if I end too early, then the food's not ready, people are wandering around, they're lost, they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So I'll try and nail that sweet spot. We have a little bit of extra time here, so I'll do my best. I'm still super nervous somehow for this being my second time speaking at SANS. And last time I was really worried about fitting in, really worried that I'd kind of stick out and be different. So I got super prepared. I went out, I bought a suit. It was like my first time since, prom in high school, getting a suit, dressed up, and I got there and I was like, I am overdressed. First thing I actually got told today when I saw my friend Scott, he said, you're overdressed again, you missed the boat. So hopefully next year we'll be a little better, but I tried to fit in. I got up on stage dressed in a suit, all super formal looking, and I told a story about hobbits for about 35 minutes. It went all right. It went well. I'm not sure why I did that until after the fact when I realized that I really like to still tell stories and I like to talk about them. To me, stories are a fantastic learning medium. They give you an opportunity to share a story, and everybody kind of takes away a different lesson or a different piece of information from it that's pertinent to them. Um, and why is that, right? That's what I'm always thinking about. Sure, it makes you seem like a wise teacher. I like to think about it as teaching on easy mode, but sharing stories works so effectively because everyone here in this room is different, right? We come from different backgrounds. We have different lives. I grew up completely different compared to a lot of my friends here in this room. Like, for example, I have seen a Walkman. I do remember it. I actually held a Walkman once, and this wasn't a museum or anything. And it was pivotal in my life. I was like, okay, this is a Walkman, this is cool. And for me, that was different. But for many of you, you might have had a Walkman. You might have experienced that over and over. You might have used it more than just once in your life, right? Um, my experiences, my interactions with the world and technology are completely different. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not like part of the new generation. I wasn't an iPad kid. I didn't grow up with a screen in front of my face all the time. I don't get the brain rot, the TikTok, all the memes and stuff that's over there. But that's kind of the next generation that's coming into DFIR work, right? They're completely different and they think differently and have a different life than I do, and people who are just coming into DFIR work at my stage. And then comparatively to several of you who are professionals, you have a lot more, experience. You have been in the game for a longer time. So I'm kind of interested to figure out what brings everyone here together. Um, we think differently. Our thoughts are different. The people sitting right here in the front row probably think quite differently to the person in the back playing on their laptop compared to, me and somebody else. So what's brought us together, right? What has drawn us all to DFIR? And then what can we do with that? How do we bring more talent into the room? What can we accomplish together? That's kind of the focus here today. Before I get ahead of myself, sorry, I'll start with introductions. I'm Chandler McClellan. I am a student at Utah State University. That's about an hour and a half drive north of here. So by Utah standards, that feels very, very far away. It's very, very weird to come down to Salt Lake, but for some of you, it's maybe just a commute. For my studies, I'm doing a bachelor's in data analytics, as well as a bachelor's in information systems cybersecurity, with kind of the focus and effort of that, bringing an analytical approach to cybersecurity problems. It interests me to take that approach along with my intelligence studies. So anticipatory intelligence is an intelligence minor that kind of focuses on an interdisciplinary approach to complex problem solving and creating resiliency in systems. So it's very harmonious with what I like to do in cyber and what I care about. Motorcycles, that's a big personality trait for me as well. I should probably put that out there and share that. I love motorcycles. I'm a motorhead. Feel free to talk to me about motorcycles afterwards. I'll talk your ear off. And mountains as well. That's the other thing that would probably describe me well. If you're in Utah, I heard earlier they're talking about caving and stuff like that. You kind of have to be, how would you say this? To be a true, Utah native, you kind of have to have 3 or 4 extreme sports for hobbies that will probably kill you if you mess them up, right? That's just kind of how you fit in around here. So skiing, rock climbing, whatever it is, I like to be outside. By way of my career, we'll start with the man in the top corner. That's Scott. First off, Scott, he's one of the big reasons that why I'm here today, why I'm not an engineer, why I'm not a college dropout. Scott came into my life at a time when I was hating school. I was not passionate about my career. I wasn't passionate about the future and where I was going with it. And Scott was just kind of this cool, mysterious, cyber ninja. He's probably saved the world like 5 times. And he came into my life and I was like, I kind of want to be like him. That seems really cool. He's passionate about what he's doing. He enjoys the work he's doing. And I looked up to that and I thought it was interesting. As well as at this time, I was, getting into podcasts, Darknet Diaries, that kind of stuff. I had some influences that all kind of lined up at the right time and brought me to cyber, which fast forward to Utah State, I ended up working for the university as a cybersecurity technician. It's like a student role, super basic SOC work. It's, queues, account security management, vulnerability management, that kind of stuff. And I got to learn a lot about this world of cybersecurity, a lot of the words, these new fancy phrases, jargon, tools. And it kind of opened my eyes to the field. And I started to realize that cybersecurity wasn't just a job like I was thinking of it. Rather, it's this big, huge field filled with lots of super niche interconnected roles with professionals who specialize in every little different branch of it. You can really kind of find a home here. So that was great. My time with the university. And then I was able to kind of have a door of opportunity open to me. So Interpres, that was Scott's doing as well. He kind of took a chance, opened up an internship role. And Interpres was a super small startup. So when I joined on, it was just Scott and I on this team. It was super funny. We'd have like a Jira board for managing tickets and queues. And most days, almost every day, I would see Scott and talk with him, but we were just bantering back and forth like we were in a big organization, but we weren't. And it was in that role as let me get this right, cyber threat intelligence research engineer intern. That's a lot of words, but that was my title there. So meaning we had a lot of hats to wear, right? I had the opportunity to get my hands on with a lot of different projects, a lot of different roles, and kind of experience different things. Scott taught me about automation. He walked me through kind of his world of cyber threat intelligence and the role that he played there at the company. So it was great. It was super formative in my cybersecurity journey to this point, and I had a lot of opportunity to sit at a whiteboard with Scott for countless hours as he walked me through foundational things, simple diagrams, elements, security concepts, whatever it may be. And then fast forward to this past summer at CrowdStrike. I was an intrusion analyst intern at CrowdStrike. So super positive experience. I worked on the Overwatch team, which is their threat hunting team, or the folks who are kind of searching through telemetry, looking for threat actors, looking for indicators, kind of finding things and setting off alerts and triggers for their customers. I specifically was on the e-crime team, so working with a lot of ransomware, banking trojans, malware, that kind of stuff. So it was amazing. I had some amazing exposure to, hunting real threat actors that were going after our customers, diving into the data, really getting hands-on. And kind of what I felt like up to this point in my career was, my big break into DFIR, the real hands-on experience and exposure. So I'll touch more on that as we go through this, as it's my most recent internship, but that's kind of what brought me here to this point. So what brought us all together, right? Why are we all in this room? Why, though we're all very different, have different backgrounds, different ways of thinking, are we here together, right? From my experiences, I kind of want to touch on what challenges also exist for new folks to DFIR. How can we think about attracting and retaining new talent to DFIR, and what we can do to kind of using those two accomplish great things together, right? By finding solutions to the previous 2 points, how can we make our community better, be better in protecting our customers and our environments? So let's start with the basics, albeit as intuitive as they are to most of us here. I think the basics are the foundation that provides structure to this thought exercise that we're going through today. So the allure of DFIR, what draws us here? What has brought all of us together in this room? One of the first things I ever heard about with DFIR and why people enjoy it, why they do it, why it's so engaging, is the thrill of DFIR. It's a phrase that I heard many times, and I was always a little confused about the thrill. Because to me, when I hear thrill, I have a very different concept of what thrill means. In my background, it's some adrenaline-filled, sport. It's, physics-defying roller coasters. You're on the brink of danger the entire time, or maybe it's whitewater rafting or some other sport where it's, possibility of death. That's kind of like the adrenaline state that I think of when I think of thrill. Jumping out of an airplane. It's very abnormal from your day-to-day life. That rush, that high, and for me, the thrill kind of leaves you craving for that opportunity again. So when I kept hearing thrill, I thought, okay, that's what it is. Dictionary definition makes sense. A sudden, oh, I can't read it on anywhere. A sudden feeling of excitement and pleasure. It's a thrill, right? It makes sense. It feels intuitive. But how does that, apply to computers? This isn't, life or death. You're not jumping out of an airplane every time you're solving an investigation or going through a hunt. So I guess real quick, let's do like a small impromptu survey. Just raise of hands, something simple, but put your hand up if you've ever competed in a CTF before, right? Pretty much all of us. Now keep your hand up if you spent way too much time on a problem in one of those CTFs, right? Banging your head against the wall, frustrated, losing your mind. All right, now if you have your hand up, keep it up if you spent too much time on that one problem just because you knew you were so close to solving that flag, right? You were gonna get it. You got the last few flags. It was great. It was easy. You were right on the brink, right? We've all been there. We've all chased that little thrill, that little high that we get from solving complex cyber problems, right? It's fun. It's addicting. It's like a game. Um, in hunting, right? That thrill is that feel-good motivator that keeps us keeps us engaged. It gives us drive. It motivates us. I've had plenty of friends recently, plenty of stories I've heard from folks who went to DEF CON or a similar conference, and there's all these amazing activities and all these things. And what did they do? They went to the conference, started a CTF challenge, spent the entire time in their room, right? The hotel room with 5 other people just on their computers. And they loved it. They loved it. They didn't go out, but they loved the experience they had. They loved the thrill and going through and solving those little cyber challenges. So to me, the thrill in the context of hunting and DFIR work is about bringing together that investigative nature of DFIR, right? It appeals to problem solvers who have a passion for technology. It's about how those two come together, and it's the driving force for us folks here at DFIR. But it's not the only thing that keeps us engaged, that keeps us motivated. Making a difference. That's the second thing I think that draws people to DFIR. Making a difference, it's about doing work that has a meaningful impact on the world, right? When I was a kid, I had a bit of a hero complex growing up. I would see firefighters or police officers or veterans, and I would hope and I would dream that one day I could help people just like they do, right? Selfless service, rushing into burning buildings, helping people in need, saving lives, just being a hero, right? It was always that dream and aspiration. And, I realized with time that bringing that benefit, that value to other people's lives was something that would make the world a better place, right? You could help people. And now, spoiler alert, I did not become a firefighter, didn't make it there. Maybe there's still time for a career change. But I realized that in my career, that was something that drives me, that I wanted to make a difference. So when Scott came into my life, perfect timing, that intersection, I was like, hey, yeah, you fight cyber bad guys for a living. That's really cool. And instantly I was like, sign me up, please. I want to get involved. I want to do this. And that's not uncommon for many people in the field, right? I promised I would go into personal stories and experiences, right? Rather than talking about hobbits and whimsical things. So, I'll share my story for how I got into DFIR, into threat hunting. And, it's a good excuse to Photoshop Scott's face onto a PowerPoint. I do it for that little microburst of happiness I get when I see him roll his eyes, but I love it. This is Best Bistro, little place up on campus, lovely little quaint cafe. Scott and I would meet here because it was kind of a little bit away from the central part of campus where we spent most of our time and we're super busy. And in this memory, I mean, it was a long time ago, so some of the details are fuzzy, but that's the actual table Scott and I were sitting at um, when we were having this discussion. And it was at the point in my life when I was nearing the end of my internship, working with Scott and the work that we were doing together. And we are kind of just talking about my future and where I would go, seeing as, you're a rising senior, you got a lot on your plate. And as we're sitting there, I said some question along the lines of, Scott, I'm not sure what I'm going to do after this. Where am I going? What am I going to do? And he was like, well, what do you want to do? And, being a kiss up, maybe half kiss up, half genuine, I was kind of like, Scott, I want to have the job you have, right? When I graduate, I want to do what you do. And, I kid you not, as dramatic as it sounds, like some movie scene, Scott's eyes got a little misty. They got unfocused. He stared out that window behind us. And, I could just tell he was pondering. He was in there deep. He was about to say something super life-changing and impactful. I was like, this is it. This is a moment. He's about to tell me something important, ready to write it down. And he says to me, I want to go back to threat hunting, which in context at this point for Scott, he's a director, he's managing teams. I'm sure he's in lots of boring meetings all day, but he says to me, I want to go back to threat hunting. And I'm like, yeah, awesome, cool. What's threat hunting, right? What is this? I didn't really understand. I didn't have context at that point. So he explains to me, what threat hunting means to Scott, why he wants to do it, the excitement of helping people, making a difference, the thrill of kind of going through this hunt and proactively helping people. And I kind of opened my eyes to that point, and from that moment forward, personally, I was like, this is something I could see myself doing as a career in cybersecurity. That I want to become a part of this world and community with individuals that are focused on doing this. So that's kind of my take. That's how I personally got here. And being a curious college student, I guess I wanted to know why other people ended up threat hunting. What drew them in as well. So I asked a handful of industry professionals, friends, other people to just kind of compare their reasons for what brought them to DFIR to my own. There's a bunch of quotes up here on the screen, and I thought it was super interesting that I could see commonality in what they expressed for the reasons why they're in DFIR. Several of these people have been doing this for years and years, and they're very advanced. Some of them are younger. They're like me, just new to the field. But I mean, they express the same kind of feeling of they want to solve mysteries. They want to catch bad guys. I mean, that's exactly what I should have expected them to say, right? It's very intuitive. It's what we feel is the reason that draws us all to DFIR. Whether we're talking about it or not, it's what brought us here. It's what brought me here. It's what brought us together. I love Lillian's quote where she's saying, honestly, as cliche as it sounds, right? Because it really does sound cliche. We want to help people. We want to make a difference. And I think that's what unites us and brings people together to hunt, to do DFIR work. So to pivot, to change gears a little bit, now that we have the foundations covered, I want to talk about the challenges faced by a beginner, by folks who are new to DFIR. I mean, a lot of my experiences recently, being somebody who's new to DFIR, they matter. They're very important to me because I think I have some perspectives that will help people understand what we can do to make it more inclusive, to bring new perspectives into the field. Now, I'm not saying, these challenges are all encompassing either. These are just challenges that stood out as difficult for me to overcome in my time getting into DFIR this past year. So steep learning curve, I mean, pretty obvious to become proficient at hunting. There's a lot you have to do, there's a lot you have to know, and it can be really daunting for someone that's brand new. The real experience gap, I mean, that exists between education, whether that's formal education or being self-taught, and the skills needed for the field, as well as feelings of inadequacy. I mean, that's a real challenge for people when you're struggling with a difficult problem or challenge. So threat hunting and DFIR can be very, very complex. There's so much. There's an extensive amount of knowledge required to be proficient and to be able to conduct an investigation or a hunt, effectively and independently without somebody, another analyst holding your hand or checking your work and going through everything with you, right? So for beginners, that's very daunting, if not overwhelming. I mean, you can just look up, the basic list of tools you need to get into DFIR, and it's 25 tools long. Most of them you're not familiar with, and it's very difficult to manage. You might, end up using 5, 6, upwards of 10 just to find one solution to a problem that you're trying to work. So the time and effort that it takes to learn the strengths of these tools, to understand what they can, what they cannot do, and how to use them effectively, it's a lot for someone that's brand new to DFIR. I remember when I started at CrowdStrike, I virtually had analysis paralysis, but not because of the sheer amount of telemetry, not because of not knowing where to start hunting, but almost initially off the bat, just because the sheer amount of tools that I hadn't had exposure to being new to DFIR. A lot of them were custom, in-house tools built there. Others were ones that I hadn't had the opportunity to experience or get hands-on time with. But I remember just sitting there and not even knowing where to begin. And when I talked to different analysts, they all had different workflows. They used different tools. They had different recommendations. And it was overwhelming. It was really difficult to feel like I would ever be able to get over that steep learning curve and become productive, right? Become productive in hunting and be able to contribute to the team. So, for folks new to DFIR, they want to land that first job. It's hard to get this extensive, background knowledge. So if you are a beginner, I'd recommend looking for resources, find walkthroughs, find challenges, find CTFs, whatever it may be, that get you started on the basics. You can pick up some transferable skills and experience with tools that will hopefully be helpful when you make that transition to getting a job in the field. It's certainly a difficult challenge, but there are ways to get over it. The real experience gap, that's the gap that exists, right, between education and your practical skills needed in the field. Many courses, many classes, whatever it may be for your education, they just don't have the time or the ability to provide students with the hands-on experience that they need in the field of DFIR. I've seen job postings, right? Everyone's probably seen the job postings for entry-level positions, and they simply require 3 to 5 years of experience in DFIR. Super controversial. There's always some war in the comments or some repost where people are saying, I don't think this is fair. I really want this job, but 3 to 5 years of experience is outlandish. And then employers going, well, no, we really need someone that's an experienced professional, right? I can see both sides of it. From the newcomer's perspective, how are they going to get that 3 to 5 years experience if they're not even qualified to apply for the same entry-level job where they don't have that expectation, but they also don't have that time to get the experience through their studies and through their work. However, from the employer's perspective, I also understand that an entry-level position in DFIR requires an employee who has the know-how and the knowledge to, solve complex problems. They need to hire somebody for that role that can be self-reliant in the job, right? Independently solve the problems that they need to do. It's a high barrier to entry for a reason. I mean, it's just part of the gig. If doing DFIR was so easy, that anyone could just walk out of college and go straight into the field, then we probably wouldn't have a difficult situation in our hands. We wouldn't have a workforce shortage. So it's a bad situation for both parties to be in, but I think we can focus on kind of closing that gap, narrowing that gap for students. If students and newcomers to DFIR, if in my opinion, you help solve this problem, beginners should really just focus on finding internships, right? Get hands-on experience, find labs, real-world practice, whatever they can do to get connected and start to narrow that gap, because DFIR is not getting any easier. It's certainly a hard discipline, and it's not one you can just kind of walk into blindly with no background, no experience. Feelings of inadequacy, right? Imposter syndrome, whatever you'd like to call it. This challenge could be the most difficult for beginners because it's the one where you have to face yourself, right? Threat hunting isn't simple. DFIR isn't easy. We all know that. But when we see others, around us breeze by, breeze through a problem, find a solution to something we spent hours on and we're frustrated over, that sucks. It really does suck. Threat hunting isn't simple. DFIR isn't simple. We know that. But when we see others, really excelling, it's easy to get down on yourself. It's easy to think you'll never know as much as a coworker or gain proficiency in XYZ. But it's damaging to have that mentality and to do so. A lot of our complex cyber problems that we're trying to solve in DFIR, they're seemingly never ending, right? It's turtles all the way down, it's shaving yaks. Every time you think you understand it, it's like scope creep, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And you have to keep yourself from getting discouraged, right? you have to recognize that as you continue to learn, you'll see how much more there is to learn beyond that point and so on as you continue to expand in your knowledge. It's a sort of mindset where you view the process as a continuous cycle, um, of opportunity to learn rather than like a cycle of inadequacy and never knowing enough to solve the problem. For people that are brand new to DFIR, right? What are they doing about it? A lot of what I've seen is what I've experienced in my personal community, right? Student groups who are trying to find a way to get into this community, to narrow the opportunity gap, to narrow the curve. They're reaching out to different organizations. They're trying to attend events like this, albeit many of the events are very expensive and very hard to attend. Trust me, I know tuition's not cheap. It's certainly difficult to get here, but where they're able to attend events and connect with leaders, they're able to kind of close that skill gap. So it's important for them to do that in order to overcome the challenges. Like they have to do their part on their side in order to become more prepared for a career in DFIR. But this kind of leads me to thinking about how experienced professionals here in the field can empower this next generation. Those that are at my point, the future generation for DFIR. How can we help them and empower them to kind of come forward into a career in DFIR? What can we do? What guidance can we offer? Resources, opportunities can we connect them with? So that leads me into strategies, right? Strategies to attract and retain new talent. With these challenges that they're facing, they need help overcoming them. In my experience and in my opinion, there are a handful of things that organizations can do to attract new talent and to keep them around long term. First off, mentorship programs. They're great. I'm a big advocate for mentorship programs. It's so important helping newcomers navigate the field and develop their skills. I've needed Scott's guiding light many times throughout my career in the short time that I've known him, whether it be for counseling and encouragement or instruction and advice. Mentors are super helpful, as well as at my time at CrowdStrike. I had several mentors who were there to help me and assist me when I was, swamped with challenges, stressed, felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, running in place. Another great attractive feature for new talent is promoting a growth mindset. So that's about encouraging this fostering environment where there's continuous learning and improvement, and those are valued, right? There's not this high pressure for perfection in new talent. This helps newcomers who are looking at different companies who fear that they've not prepared for the job enough, right? Maybe they've got there, but they're not sure they'll be successful in hunting. Maybe they're scared about all the different tools or the scope creep, the turtles all the way down, right? Having that growth mindset helps attract students and newcomers to DFIR because they see it as an opportunity to grow and learn in their time there with the company. Other ways to attract newcomers and to bring new talent to our field, hands-on learning opportunities. It helps make them more qualified to be there and in that role that you need them to be, but as well as it encourages them, right? There's so much value to prospective talent in providing access to like labs or simulations or real world case studies that they otherwise wouldn't have any opportunity to experience. A lot of their education up until that point is just theoretical, whether it's studying from books or going through a little bit of hands-on exercise and stuff. It's not real and it doesn't feel real. So kind of that disparate difference is something that's important to overcome. For example, in my life, partnerships with educational institutions, they kind of offer more practical learning experiences and they put your name out there as an organization. Like it shows that you are somebody that as an organization is interested in cultivating and attracting the best talent that you can. So I'm heavily involved with my cybersecurity club at the university. And I know personally we would be over the moon for the opportunity to have those kind of connections and opportunities to partnership with an industry professional or leader and have them kind of walk us through something real, show us how they do their work, right? It's super basic, but I think some of the first steps, the first real steps into DFIR should come long before a newcomer is in their first job, right? We need to narrow those experience gaps and kind of offer that collaboration. All right. So let's talk about what I think organizations should do to retain that talent, right? You've worked so hard to bring new talent on. You've brought them here, you've attracted them, you've convinced them that you're the right place to be. But so often we just see people pivoting, right? Very quickly in the industry. They'll be there for a year or two, and then suddenly they're gone, they're burned out, they're tired. But what can we do? In my opinion, there's 4 good focus areas that we can focus on as an organization to keep that talent around. The first one is simple, just a supportive onboarding process, right? Make the onboarding process for new talent more effective and less intimidating. Start the new hire off strong with, making sure they know where they can find the tools that they need. They know what people they can reach out to for support, for asking questions, etc. Make sure from the get-go they are supported, they know what they're doing. Continuous development and training, super easy. Encourage the implementation of ongoing training and development programs. Keep their skills sharp, keep them up to date, keep them increasing. When you first start a new job, you're anxious, right? You're excited. You most importantly want to contribute to that job, do well in your role. You're super eager. So companies, organizations should use this to their advantage and make sure that they are providing that employee with resources and skills and the time that they need to refine themselves. Building a collaborative culture, super easy, right? You're putting together teams, you're making sure that you're supporting one another, supporting the new hires, supporting the new talent so they don't feel lost and alone and isolated. Make sure they have that support network, and when they're successful, you want to celebrate those wins, right? Nothing feels better than getting a good job that's well done from your team or from your manager, right? When you're super nervous about a first project or something you've been working on. So kind of focusing on those 4 things make a huge difference, huge difference when you're new to a job, when you're new talent to a team. That kind of leads me into the final point that I want to make, and that's why diversity matters in DFIR. And I know we're coming close on time, so I'll just share a short story to illustrate the point that I'm trying to make. And we'll go back to 1999, year of my birth, and the case of NASA's Mars Climate Observer Orbiter mission. So NASA, the Mars Climate Orbiter was a $330-ish million spacecraft, and it was intended to study Martian climates, right? However, it was failed and lost because of a simple yet critical mistake where there's a mix-up between the metric and the imperial system. One of the teams used metric units, while another used imperial units, and this error led to the spacecraft burning up upon entering the atmosphere at an incorrect angle. So that incident could have been avoided with more diverse and inclusive team, particularly in terms of international perspectives and communication practices, right? Diversity isn't just about gender, it's not about race, it's not about age, it's more than just those things. It's also about including different cultural and professional perspectives. A team that included people from different engineering backgrounds or experience with international countries in this context might have flagged that unit discrepancy, right? Before it became a costly mistake to the team. Diversity makes our community better, and our efforts are stronger by bringing together a wider talent pool, right? With superior talent in that pool, we have more perspectives to solve problems, fresh perspectives, driving innovation. Diversity is finally something that's being recognized as important, and it's something that we need to each work on and foster and encourage in our different organizations. For takeaways, my final thoughts, it's important to nurture new talent in DFIR. It's a collaborative effort that each of us has to work on to help new talent overcome the challenges that they face, challenges associated with getting into this field and with hunting. It's super difficult, but it's not implausible. For seasoned professionals in the room and organizations, please get involved with mentorship programs. Please offer internships and collaborate with academic institutions. Do what we can to help the next generation become empowered. We are unified, right, in what brought us here together, what brings us to doing DFIR work, the allure of the hunt. And we need to bring new talents into the field because we won't be around forever. It's not getting any easier out there, right? It's not any easier to learn DFIR. Threat actors are just getting more advanced. Tech continues to advance. But we need to come together to make sure that we are prepared and ready for the challenges of tomorrow.